We head to Malaysia now, where feminists are up in arms over a new rule, allowing Muslim men to marry up to 4 women without the permission of the first wife. It's one of a number of new regulations that have been put forth by Islamic fundamentalist clerics in recent months. As Susan Yu reports, these new Sharia laws have been denounced by the central government, and they're being condemned by feminists who say the rights of women are being diminished.
Jackie Victor is doing what she loves best, performing. She's the lead vocalist for the popular Malaysian rock band, the Jeds. Her unconventional career has raised a few eyebrows, but it's something she's grown accustomed to.
A lot of people say, oh, you shouldn't go out and have your shoulders out, and basically, in the beginning, yes, like why? I mean, she looks like this, or she looks okay to get a day job. Why can't she go be a secretary, or why does she have to sing at night?
Jackie, who's a Christian, sings with Juan, Matt, Zul, and Bob, who are all Muslims. For the Jeds, their beliefs have never been a source of conflict.
I'm the youngest in the band, and the rest of the guys have all been playing for like ages, like since they were really young. And not at all, no trouble at all, nothing.
The group epitomizes Malaysia's multi-racial and multi-religious society. But in the eyes of the ultra-conservative Pan-Malaysia Islamic Party, or PAS, rock bands like the Jeds are part of the reason for what it says is the country's growing moral decay. In September 2002, the PAS-led state government in Kelantan imposed a ban on women performing in public and private functions. Pop bands are now deemed un-Islamic, like alcohol consumption and gambling.
I think the issue of banning entertainers means denies the women that right to be an entertainer.
I was just going to say, what do you think they're really afraid of?
It's a kind of protection of these men who cannot contain themselves in terms of sexuality.
The ban is part of an Islamic fundamentalist revival that some Muslim academics believe have further eroded women's rights. Dr. Nurani Othman is a prominent scholar on Islamic gender issues.
Some modernist Muslim critique against this extremist or this new interpretation of what gender relations, of what relationship and cultural practices to do with sex and sexuality and male and female.
In Terengganu, another Malaysian state, Sharia law has been applied to marriage, inheritance, and property matters for generations. But some Muslim scholars believe these laws should be reviewed.
We have certain changes within Muslim family laws in Malaysia that actually discriminate against women in terms of the act of seeking divorce, in terms of seeking their supplementary rights upon divorce of custodial of children. And also in terms of inheritance.
Observers don't expect changes overnight. Terengganu's State Assembly passed legislation in July 2002 to enforce the Islamic Criminal Code, also known locally as Hudud laws. Under the legislation, Muslims committing certain crimes can now be subjected to punishment involving stoning, whipping, and amputations. In the case of rape, the victim is not allowed to testify on her own behalf and must have no fewer than 4 male witnesses to give evidence backing her allegations. For some, the law is the latest addition to the catalogue of discriminatory practices, with women having to shoulder a greater burden of proof than men.
Peculiar to Malaysia, you have what we call locally in Malaysia the Khalwat law, meaning a male and a female who are not muhrim, who are not related to each other, and who can be married but are not legally married under Islamic law, if they are found in a secluded private place, they can be arrested.
Irene Fernandez is Malaysia's most outspoken women's rights activist. She knows all too well the difficulties many women face in the legal system. Fernandez herself is the defendant in the country's longest-running trial involving her critical report on the government's treatment of migrant women. Now, she says, the treatment of Muslim women needs to be addressed.
The position of women has to be looked into. It cannot be seen as women have no experience, they cannot be witnesses. The reality has changed. The capacity for women to be witnesses is there today and as equal to men. And therefore the concept of equality has to be re-looked into the Islamic Penal Code.
PAS has adopted a very narrow, myopic view of Islam. So much so that it is given a very negative perception of what the religion is.
PAS officials disagree. In their view, the Sharia law, as it has for centuries, maintains the well-being of Muslim women.
I don't think that this law is going to affect adversely the position of women. Rather, this law will give greater protection to the women themselves.
Can you give us an example briefly of that?
Well, the example, as I say, is from the law itself. From the law itself, the women has been protected anyway. So the concrete example I cannot say.
Some Muslims, though, want answers and question the motives behind the introduction of the Islamic Criminal Code to parts of Malaysia.
Their knowledge on Islam is not very deep. And these so-called the mullahs, including the state of Kelantan and all that, they tend to have the monopoly of the interpretation of Islam. And they imposed this to the Muslims.
In an unprecedented move, Hudud supporters and PAS party members have gone on the offensive, trying to dispel myths surrounding the Islamic Penal Code. In this public forum, Terengganu's executive councillor Tun Saleh Abbas tried to convince the audience, made up of various rights and religious groups, that the code is just.
If the offences committed is regarded as something extreme, something bad, something very serious, something very grave to the society, then whatever punishment must be related to the graveness or the gravity of the offences itself.
Supporters say Islamic justice has been unfairly maligned and misunderstood.
You're going to see this.
Why do you think that there is a bit of a misperception about Hudud law and Islam in general?
Well, simply because the world now today is being governed by the secular penal law, and not really Islamic law itself. So many generations, many people have forgotten the beauty of Islamic law itself.
Is it out of date for the 21st century?
What is not archaic, neither is it medieval. You can call it medieval because it's applicable during the time Islam was really on the top of the world. It's not really archaic. In this country, it was only replaced when the British colonial came here.
But no one can argue that times have changed, along with interpretations of the Quran, and most importantly, the status of Malaysian women in society. These are all issues the Malaysian central government has recognized and have keenly tried to promote and protect. After all, the country wants to remain one of the most liberal and modern Muslim countries in the world.